And we'll start off with a morning prayer. Dear Lord, as we start this day, we want to thank you for your goodness and faithfulness. Though life has given us many reasons to sigh, you have given us more reason to smile. Thank you for your blessings and for giving us gifts the world can give or take away. We commit this day and all that's in it into your hands. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Harmony there.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Happy October 1st. We finally made it into another month. I would like to invite our guests. Good morning to David Jones from our friends at Quinn City. They had their first hybrid meeting on Tuesday, which I witnessed, which was actually went really well. So welcome, David.
Morning, thank you.
I know that Margot has an announcement to make, so I'll turn things over to Margot.
Thank you. I don't know if anybody else is a dinosaur like me still gets the Buffalo News by print. If somebody could save today's gusto for me and either snail mail it to me or run it to me if you're coming to visit, I would appreciate it. There's this certain winery on the cover because of being haunted, etc., etc. And my mother in Albany would like a copy, as do some other relatives. So if anybody has it, please
Margot,
send it.
Margot.
Yes, Dave.
I can probably send that down with either Mike or myself.
Well, actually, I think you're coming tomorrow, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's what Crew Chief Mike told me, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. I could use a couple extra. Thank you.
Thank you, Margot.
You're welcome.
Are there any other announcements from the floor?
Good morning. Welcome to October.
Yes, welcome to October. Thank you both. And our guests, we have Julio joining us again this morning. Good morning to Julio. We'll get back to him. But
good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Julio.
Buenos dias.
Hello, buenos dias.
Buenos dias, yep, buenos dias.
All right, we welcome Julio. Thank you for joining us. And I will turn things over to our Toastmaster of the day, Mike Licata. Mike?
Thank you, Eric. And good morning, everybody. Let's roll right into our agenda today this morning. So we will start right with our word master. I have asked him to do it, have volunteered him. Our word master this morning is Dave Licata.
Good morning, everybody. Hang on. Yes. Good morning, everybody. The word for today is autumnal. A-U-T-U-M-N-A-L. And that is an adjective that describes things that have the characteristic of occurring in autumn, like chilly autumnal weather. It's autumnal outside today. Who's playing the music again?
Thank you, Dave. And our master this morning is Samir. Samir, you want to explain your role?
Sure. I will, as I just demonstrated, be counting ahs, as, so's, ands, also's, yeah, buts, you know's, likes, and unintentional pauses throughout the meeting. So good luck, everyone, in avoiding those.
Thank you, Samir. And our grammarian, she was gracious enough to step in this morning, is Dr. Anne-Marie Lenhart.
Oh, you're on mute.
No. Sorry. Our grammarian this morning is Anne-Marie Lenhart.
Hey, can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, my mic was off. Boy, cyberspace. What a challenge. I'll act as the grammarian today and listen very carefully for appropriate uses of the English language and inappropriate. So be careful what you say and how you say it. And I'll report at the end of the meeting. Hello to everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Lenhart. And our quote master this morning is Margot Bittner.
Good morning. I do have an autumnal quote for you today. It's from Harry Ward Beecher. October is the opal month of the year. It is the month of glory, of ripeness. It is the picture perfect month. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Margot. And our jester this morning, he's pulling double duty because I asked him to, is Dave Licata. Do you have a quick joke for us this morning?
We can't hear you.
All right, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yes.
I dedicate this quickie to my good friend and our president, Eric Snyder. How do you fix a broken pumpkin?
Oh, patch it, yeah.
No, it's pumpkin patch. You've got the words reversed. Thank you. That's enough for today.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Dave.
How am I not surprised?
It was an Eric joke.
Thank you, Dave. And our timer this morning is Jen Zapla.
Hello, I will be your timer today. Timing is very important. In fact, if you have the wrong time, you miss everything. So don't forget to stay within time today. For our speakers, I hope you will give me what your timing is. Typical speeches are 5 to 7. For our table topics contestants, your time will be 1.5, 1:45, and 2. And for our evaluators, your time will be 2, 2.5, and 3. When you have reached your minimum time, you will see the green background. When you've reached the middle of your time, the yellow background. And when you need to wrap it up, you will see the red background. If you are speaking, please make sure that you pin me and are able to see me so that you know where you have fallen on time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. And I also want, it's often forgotten, the general evaluator, but I have him down, so I will introduce Ryan Flore as our general evaluator for me this morning. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. It is beginning to become a little bit more autumnal in the morning as we wake up and the light isn't quite with us anymore. And so as we wake up in the dark, I would just like to remind everybody to continue putting the same amount of energy into this. And so far, you get extra bonus points for introducing me ahead of all of the meat of the meeting, which is solid. But I will be paying attention to the meeting as a whole, to the Toastmasters as they go about their business today and they fulfill their roles. And then I will focus on the evaluators and the Toastmasters of the day and give a summary report at the end. So thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster, and I look forward to compiling that report today.
Thank you, Ryan. And I almost forgot, he was gracious enough to step in this morning. Our quizmaster this morning will be Len Thornton.
Yes, my job is to keep the coffee flowing and pay attention and make note of certain facts throughout the meeting, facts which I will quiz you on at the conclusion. So stay sharp, listen intently. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Len. And I also want to welcome our guest, Susanna Toledo, this morning. When when I came up with this simple theme of October, I decided to keep it simple because these meetings can usually be kind of brisk. So I found a couple of really interesting facts and tidbits for the month of October. And in the Roman calendar, October is actually the 8th month, which is why it starts with octo. And it became the 10th month when January and February were added to the Roman calendar. I actually also found this interesting. The National Fire Prevention Week falls during the week of October 9th each year. It actually commemorates the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. The Anglo-Saxons called October Winterfylleth, meaning fullness of winter, because it had the first full moon of the winter season. So with those interesting facts, I will now invite Dr. Gerald Stevens, who is our table topics master. Just remind everyone that gets called on for table topics that it's 1.5 to 2 minutes, and that we usually require the use of the word. And with that, I will introduce Dr. Gerald Stevens.
Morning, fellow Toastmasters, and thank you for that introduction, Mr. Toastmaster. Table topics today. I have a few, I feel like they're softballs today, so no one should be afraid. You should be excited to answer one of these questions. And I hope I pick the people that are actually available, since I don't have the agenda in front of me. We'll start off, I believe, Tracy is available. Are you available, Tracy?
I am available.
You are available, great. So this is probably the softball of all softballs. What is your favorite October activity? That's wide open. Tracy.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. October is a fantastic month. First of all, you start off the month with October 1st, my son's birthday. So we celebrate the autumnal of the year today. It was probably one of the greatest days of my life when he was born. Second of all, I love the leaves. I love going out and looking at all the colorful leaves. October's beautiful in New York. And I love going up to Indian Falls, where you can go and sit at that restaurant and overlook the creek and the waterfalls there, especially this time of year because of the colors. I love taking drives in the fall to look at the color of the leaves and the change of the seasons. And pumpkins, they're so much fun. I really do like pumpkins. I like carving pumpkins into jack-o'-lanterns. I like decorating the front porch and everything with leaves and the corn stalks and pumpkins and mums. It's a lot of fun doing that. And it's one of the easiest, nice times a year where you can do that. Then we end the month with one of my favorite holidays. I think it's truly American holiday is Halloween. I think it's so great that all the kids in the neighborhood and the neighboring areas will come. My house gets, in regular years, about 300 trick-or-treaters. And coming to see some of these little kids dressed in their costumes is so much fun. It's kind of a nice, relaxing night watching who can resist a little kid coming to your door asking for candy? So it's one of my favorite months, one of my favorite holidays. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters.
Thank you, Tracy. Second question I have today is for Moklis, as he's available. Just unmute, there you go.
Yes.
Not as easy as hers, possibly, but October 26th is my favorite holiday. What holiday is that, you may ask? It's my birthday. Advance notice all. So I like to celebrate that probably more than any other holiday because it's theoretically just for me. What is your favorite holiday or birthday story, Moklis?
Good morning, Madam Mr. Table Topic Master. If I may, Can I forward the questions to Susanna or Julio? Is it possible?
Sure, if you want to defer it, that's possible.
Is Susanna available?
Susanna, are you available?
I am available. I'm not going to take off my video though, because it's a little early over here.
Okay. You want to go ahead, do the table topic question?
Sure. Could you remind me what the word of the day is? I might have missed that.
Autumnal.
Autumnal.
Descriptive of autumn.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving me this question about what my favorite holiday or birthday event would be. I too have an autumnal birthday, as my birthday falls on November 25th, which sometimes actually does fall on Thanksgiving. And looking back, it was fun to have a celebration around that time because people were already gathered. You would never have to look very far, and there was a family gathering. And I guess it wouldn't necessarily be my favorite one, but it's the one that stands out the most is when I turned 30, I had told my husband that I wanted to have a surprise party. Now, people don't normally go around saying, I want a surprise party, but I've found that with my husband, it's best to be direct. And so I said, please plan a surprise party. And it ended up being more of a surprise for my guests than it was for me because he had to ask me where I wanted to go and when I wanted to be there and who I wanted to invite. But he did all the work, and I guess that's what's most important. When we actually made it to the restaurant, people were waiting for us and they were ready to surprise us. And the hostess said very loudly, "You're here for the surprise party, right?" And I just covered my ears and said, la, 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 la. I'll just pretend to be surprised. And it was really wonderful when I walked in and all of my family and friends were there to celebrate with me. Because that's the most important thing. It didn't necessarily have to be a surprise. It was the fact that they all came together to be there to celebrate my birthday. And we had my favorite food, which is barbecue. And there's lots of leftovers. So the celebration just continued on and on. And looking back, I don't think I would do it any different. Is the best thing to do to celebrate birthdays is when those people that you care about are around you. So thank you for letting me speak about that today.
Thank you, Susanna. We're going to compare barbecue notes in the chat, maybe. My third question today. October obviously has Halloween. And I would like to pick Carol if she has no job today. She is smirking a little bit, so I'm going to say she's available. As Halloween, tell us about your favorite costume or Halloween experience. Nice and open for you. Carol. Just got to unmute yourself.
Yes, Halloween is one holiday that we do celebrate in our home a lot. We always carve pumpkins. My husband grows the pumpkins, so we have our choice of pumpkins. We usually choose one that's nice and round and that you can make a face on it. And last year, I did miss out on that. Not that carving is my favorite thing, but my husband and I were on a cruise last Halloween, so I did not carve then. My husband is very particular about knowing how many trick-or-treaters we have. We always have to have a pad and pencil by the door and count them all. This year, I'm not sure how the trick-or-treating is going to work, but he often sits in the other room and say, "Now, did you write all those down?" I don't know, he's just got a thing about knowing how many we have. And we used to get, where we used to live, over actually close to Tracy on Rogers, we had like 200, but we haven't been getting quite as many here where we live on O'Brien. The costumes, I know, are, well, I'll go back to a party we had on Halloween at the farm when the schoolhouse didn't have so much stuff in it. And my husband dressed as a lady and I dressed as a priest, but the guests, one of our guests dressed as an outhouse. So that was probably one of the most interesting ones. And if you want an autumnal experience, drive to Letchworth State Park. Mr. Table Topics.
Thank you, Carol. Madam Timer, may I have a timer's report?
You may. Tracy came in time at 1:55, Susanna at 1:33, and Carol unfortunately went over even with the buffer at 2:30.
Okay. And Dave Licata, Wordmaster's report, please.
All right, here's your Wordmaster's report for today. Tracy Farrell used the word of the day. Muckless had a chance, but he declined. He didn't use the word of the day. Susanna did use it, and Carol used it as well. So our three participants, word-wise, are eligible.
Okay, you will see a poll coming around and take an opportunity to vote. And I'll turn it back over to our Toastmaster, Mike Licata.
Thank you, Dr. Stevens. Some more interesting facts about October actually is the traditional flower of the month is a calendula, symbolizing comfort, healing, protection, and grace. And according to folklore, if the deer had a gray coat during October, you should expect a hard winter, which I always find interesting because every once in a while, a lot of folklore actually turns out to be quite close to the truth. So with that, we will get into our speaking portion of the meeting this morning. I will introduce our first evaluator this morning is Cate Banks evaluating Beth Banks.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters. While Mom is getting situated in the next room, we have a Studio A and B situation going on, like the Licata family here. We'll see how that rolls. Thanks for adjusting the order also to our speakers and anyone who is wondering. This is the speech that the evaluator has to reevaluate the same speaker. So I evaluated Mom last time. This is the next round on her path, which I thought I had right here, but she's giving the speech, the same speech, and it is 5 to 7 minutes, and she will focus on absorbing what I evaluated last time in giving this again. Mr. Toastmaster, you have her title, right?
Correct, yep.
All right, thank you.
Beth has been in our club for a little bit over a year now. She joined for a number of reasons, and one being it helps enhance her leadership as the executive director of the Niagara Celtic Festival. And this is her second speech as part of her Pathways journey. Welcome, Beth Banks. Memories to Beth Banks.
Beth, you are muted.
There we go. Thank you. Memories. Our unique memories affect our lives, can affect our lives in many ways. For example, many of us through the years have had dreams of falling off something. I dreamt when I was a child of falling off bridges over and over again. But as in most adults, I have learned to overcome that nightmare, and I am able to go across long bridges and somewhat climb mountains. Climbing ladders is is an issue for me. I don't really climb ladders very well. I leave that to my husband or one of our children to be able to do that. So my memory has affected that ability to climb. My memories of some of my older relatives range from the slightly strange to the, oh, that was embarrassing, to the wonderful. The slightly strange, you might ask, well, that is my great-grandmother. I cannot think of my great-grandmother without thinking of mothballs. She must have used mothballs to protect her clothing from the moths. They did that many years ago. However, she loved to hug all of us, and then we had this waft of not so wonderful odor because of the mothballs. One of my most embarrassing memories is visiting my Aunt Barb and Uncle Bill, favorites of mine, but on one particular visit, I got the flu. I don't know about you, but in my opinion, that is one of the worst things to do is if you get sick at someone else's house. It's awful getting sick, but when it's at someone else's house, it is most embarrassing. It is truly a testament to their love that they ever invited me back again. Thank goodness they did, because one of my wonderful memories is also of them and traveling back to their house from this area in the car. My aunt and my two cousins would fall asleep about halfway through, and then my Uncle Bill and I would turn on the radio, 50s and 60s music, and we would sing along the rest of the trip. I still know many of the words to those songs, probably partly because of those trips. They were also very kind, and they invited us on a family trip to Myrtle Beach, my husband and I, a few years ago, and we were able to go to a number of the music theaters there that specialize in the 50s and 60s music. Dave Licata, you would have loved it. It was wonderful. We all have our unique memories, even within a family. That was pointed out to me a few years ago. When my mother was still alive, she told me about her grandfather. It wasn't a very good memory because she remembers her grandfather coming to their house to beat up her father and hiding under the bed. I thought at the time how traumatic for a young child to remember that. A number of years ago, I had the opportunity to talk to one of my aunts about the same man. It was eye-opening to me because her memories were very different from my mother's. She remembered her grandfather as being the great Irish storyteller. She loved him, one of her favorite people. It was such a difference in memories of the same man. I realize in my own siblings, my younger brother and I are quite close, my youngest, and he and I have talked about memories in the past, and you have realized that we don't always have the same memories of certain people or certain events. Another brother called me recently, and he called me because he knew I would have similar memories of trips that we took to Canada. And he wanted to ask me about those memories. What did I think? And we remembered trips to a cottage that we spent time, one of my dad's fishing buddies. We remembered a cottage way up north that had leeches in the lake, and my cousin scaring us half to death by telling us the bear was right behind us and we needed to run. That was disconcerting, to say the least, but we had those memories, and that was important. Another memory that I have is my mother in the autumnal season because Thanksgiving was her absolute favorite time of the year, and she loves Thanksgiving. So it is a Thanksgiving memory that I have, and I don't know if you can see this. My screen has changed, so I don't have myself on. This here is what is called a salt cellar. We use these in my house because my mother had a salt cellar collection that I have added to, and that is creating wonderful memories for my grandchildren. We all make new memories every year. I hope that some of yours from this year are happy. Thank you, the Toastmaster.
Thank you, Beth. And I invite everyone in the meeting today to make sure to send everyone notes, all the speakers' notes in the chat as a reminder. And our second speaker this morning, evaluated by Sylvia Baptiste, will be Thomas Heldwein. Sylvia, you want to give us a background on what Thomas is doing this morning?
I do. Morning, everyone. This morning, Thomas will reflect on his Toastmasters journey, working from the virtual communicator, final speech, reflect on your path. He has a few objectives. Thomas will list his accomplishments in Toastmasters and outside of Toastmasters. Thomas will reflect on how much he has learned and gained, describe the impact of being a Toastmaster, setting new goals in Toastmasters. It will be one of his new steps, and he's going to talk about that. The time is between 10 and 12 minutes. And you have his title?
I do.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you, Sylvia. Thomas is also been in our club for about fewer than 5 years now, but he has really done a great job of embracing pathways, and I want to congratulate him in advance on finishing his first path and being at level 5 this morning. His speech title is 3 Toastmasters Walk into a Bar, Thomas Heldwein. 3 Toastmasters Walk into a Bar.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that I'm having trouble with technically is how to share a video via share desktop. That is my problem. I guess this is a technical problem I could have fixed before the meeting, but unfortunately it's not working.
Click on share.
Okay. Minimize. Zoom. Speaker view. Share screen.
There you go. Coming.
Excellent. All right, we just need to move all the way back to 0, 0, 0. This is something called Quick Cut, and was what I'm going to be using to make my TV show. There's a way to make this bigger. There it is. Excellent. And the answer to the question of 3 Toastmasters walk into a bar, I didn't come up with an answer for or a punchline, but would love to talk after the meeting about how to finish that. The speech went a totally different direction. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster and my evaluator, for such a kind introduction. Good morning to my fellow Toastmasters and to our guests. After 2 years, I've completed my first path. And that path is the visionary communication path, where I built skills on strategic communication and developed my skills for sharing information, playing communication, and creative, innovative solutions. One of the things that is important to know is that of the 5 levels, the 3rd level was the one that took me the most time. What you can see is the 3rd level, almost every class was active, but I did not give speeches for each one. I just learned the material and gave out the speeches that I felt I could deliver the most effectively. Whatever. I received both the Triple Crown and many of those ribbons we find so valuable that we keep it at home. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was my self-reflection along my path. I couldn't have done it alone. I had mentors. You should have a mentor. Dave Licata, Mark, and even Marty. They've all been my mentors and talked to me one-on-one after meetings on how to improve and do better. And one of the nicest things are all the kind notes we used to get at the end of every speech. I know we do the comments in the comment section now, but I think that's one of the things I miss the most is reading people's notes. What are the 4 things that you need to know to do better at your speeches? They're simple. 1, commit 100% to every single speech. You will be motivated. You need to act things out in your head and then do them physically. That seems logical. And no matter how scared you are, you need to show your emotions, show your heart. Really? So what were some of the obstacles in my way that still are in my way? Time. Whether you over-prepare or under-prepare, you'll obviously know it. If you do things last minute, sometimes people will believe that was a good speech. Well, probably because you were just telling a story that you already told 100 times. That's okay. Tell a story and tell it well. You were there. So how have I grown? How have I become a better person? Well, that's simple. One of the things that happened is I learned to have more confidence in myself. The nervousness of talking up in front of a crowd is something we all have. But one of the 3 things is this group is so caring and open, and they do give some honest feedback on things that you need to improve. So I feel that I'm finally ready to go to Lockport television cable and create my own comedy show where some of the characters you see here will be there and that the subject matter will be diverse and hopefully some will be helpful and some will just be entertaining. What are my next steps? Well, my next steps are to become an officer in the next year, to start my new path, and hopefully to become a mentor. Now, what can I say about being a mentor? Well, being a mentor is sharing what you've learned with other people. Don't need to judge yourself. You don't need to be that hard on yourself. You're a good person. You're special in some way. Share that with everyone. No one's going to say anything bad. And if they do, don't listen to them. You'll never make everyone happy with any speech. Someone will always be upset or sad or bored or just basically not even paying attention. They'll ignore it because they're too busy doing something else. Or judging you against someone else. You don't need to judge yourself against anyone else. You need to judge yourself and have you grown a little bit each speech? Have you gotten better? There's definitely things to copy. There's props. There's the idea of having personal stories. Ideas will come into your head of, oh, I'd love to give a speech on that. Use that motivation to give a really good speech. So in conclusion, I'd like to thank everyone who supported me throughout this entire long 2-year path and where I've gotten to now, and that my project of a real comedy show is probably going to become a real thing. If you asked me originally when I started, it was an idea, it was a hope. Now I have the foundations that I needed to get there. I appreciate all of you and hope to be someone's mentor and share everything I've learned with someone else. When I look back at my path, I see all of you at the roadside. You've been there. You've walked with me along part of it, if not all of it. Now we're at the end. I start a new path, and hopefully you'll walk that one with me too, as I walk with you on yours.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. And our final speaker this morning, he was gracious enough to step in, and I thank him for that very much, will be Larry McKenzie. And this morning, Larry will be evaluated by Phil Russell.
Are you ready for me?
Yes.
I am ready for you. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and Larry, and our guest, of course. Larry is doing, I did get the evaluation form. I went into the computer, printed it out. The only thing I have to remember is that I could type it in and have it all filled in prior to. But what he's doing is a speech that I've done. It's about mentoring. The purpose of this speech, and I have to, the printer didn't print it out really well, but it's really a good project. He's going to be talking to us about the purposes of a project with clearly define how Toastmasters envisions mentoring. The purpose of this speech is for a member to share some aspect of previous experience as a protege, meaning you had a mentor, you're the protege. He's going to be talking about it, not explaining to us how Toastmasters views mentoring, but how you were mentored yourself. I will be evaluating it. It's a 5 to 7 minute speech. Mr. Toastmaster, do you have the title?
I do. Thanks, Phil. Our immediate past president, Larry McKenzie, did a great job keeping our club going during this current time. And we will be forever grateful for all the work that he did to keep the club going. Larry is working on his Pathways Level 2, and his speech title this morning is Never Too Old. Larry McKenzie, Never Too Old.
This morning, I would like to tell you about a little journey that I've had in my life. It began when I was a small child. There was a young lady that was born May 11th, 1889. Her name was Mary Ellen Daly. She later married a gentleman named Everett Kelly. Those were my grandparents. When I was a young child, I used to spend all of my summers in Nova Scotia, a little fishing village called Canso. While there, Nanny Kelly, as we affectionately called her, was a wonderful mother, but she was also a wonderful person to the whole community. And as a child, she would sit and she would talk to me when I was there and tell me stories. stories about our family, stories about life, stories about how to overcome certain circumstances that you think are devastating. Now, as a young child, and I'm listening to my grandmother, her stories were wonderful. Did I know 50 some odd years ago that those stories that I listened to, that she told me, that I intensely sat there as if she was reading out of a book, her true life stories, how they would have an effect on my life. One of the things that she did is she used to cook on a wood stove, very similar to the one that's behind you. Now, if you see the one that's right here, those are hot boxes. As meals were prepared, they would put them up in the hot box to keep them warm. Now, Nan was affectionately known as Cook to the whole town. Whenever you were hungry or if you needed something, you would go to see Mrs. Kelly. She would always have a kind word. She would always have something for someone to eat, no matter who came in through the door. One of the things that she taught me as a young child is that circumstances may not be what you think would be something that you would be able to work through, such as when she would do her recipes. When I would write down and I would help her make different things, I would say, Nan, what's in that? Well, a pinch of this, a little bit of that. And I said, well, don't you measure what's in there? And she said, well, she said, it usually comes out the same, but sometimes you have to adjust. I didn't quite understand that. As I grew older, I met other family members that didn't have the opportunity to spend as much time with Nan as I did and learn and listen to her stories. So I became the storyteller within the family. Nan lived to a ripe age of 101 years old. We had a birthday party for her on her 100th birthday in 1989. It was the same year that my youngest daughter was born. We have a beautiful picture of the two of them sitting together 100 years apart. Now, my youngest daughter had never had the opportunity to hear any of the stories from my grandmother. Those stories are things that molded my life. So from a mentor perspective, my earliest mentor was my grandmother. And I didn't realize it at the time, how much by listening to her stories and doing the things that you're supposed to do in life, meaning be a good person, do what's right, always respect other people, and lend a helping hand whenever you can. That those things would be embedded in me from a childhood, and I carry them now through my adult life. And those are things that I've instilled in my children, to always remember where you came from and the stories of your family and how things have been molded throughout your lifetime to make you the person that you are. So with that being said, where does that fall within mentorship? Well, in Toastmasters, we're asked to give speeches and different things, and we're asked to perhaps develop those speeches in a way where perhaps we need a coach or we need a mentor, somebody to encourage us to do different things that will make us improve, not only within our speeches. But I think mentorship is a lot deeper, meaning that everything in life, from childhood through your teachers in school, family members, co-workers, people that you have conversations with, you learn things from. So if you take all of those elements and put them together and make some of the right decisions, now you may not always make the right decision, but you learn from those things. Similar to when we're giving a speech in Toastmasters. You learn that sometimes you have to adjust different parts of what you're saying or how you say it to make it more effective. One of the things that I can still remember from way back when Grandma, Nanny Kelly, she was very autumnal because of the fact that they always prepared for the winter. They prepared by canning and getting different things ready. That carried on through my life to always be prepared for unknown circumstances that may happen. So as I reflect on developing my speech for today, I look back and I give thanks for my very first mentor from when I was a young child. And I'll always carry her deep in my heart, and that is Nanny Kelly. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Larry. Madam Timer, how did we do on time? How did our speakers do on time this morning?
Yes, so I was a bit confused on the timing, but Beth came in at 6:23. Thomas, depending on if you counted his setup time, his video I think was exactly 7 minutes. His setup time was about another 1.5 to 2 minutes, so I'm not sure if you want to count the setup time or not. And Larry came in time with 6:47.
We can count the setup time, so that would put it at 9.5.
It was like 8:45.
8:45. Okay. So I guess vote for Beth or Larry this morning. I was also able to, in doing my research, I was also able to find some interesting history notes on exactly what happened on October 1st. And in 1880, the first electric lamp factory was opened by Thomas Edison. In 1891, Stanford University opened. In 1908, for only $825, Ford's Model T was put on the market on this date in 1908. In 1962, the first broadcast of The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson began. In 1971, Walt Disney World actually opened near Orlando, Florida. And finally, in 1982, Sony launched the first consumer compact disc player on this date in 1982. And with that, I will introduce our evaluator this morning. Evaluating Beth Banks will be Cate Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, and thank you, Mom, for this opportunity. Thank you for joining the club after I pestered you for many weeks and months and years to join. Never would have expected to be evaluating you side by side in this virtual setting. So I would say this is your third speech. I neglected to do that at the beginning. So this was the evaluation and feedback speech, where we apply the second speech's feedback to giving it a third time. And after this third speech, now you will be prepared as an evaluator yourself. So you can be an evaluator moving forward, and you can be Toastmaster moving forward. I think that your eye contact was strong. You stood up. That's a challenge. It did not look like you were focused on your notes because you kept bringing stories that you knew solidly into play, as you did last time. I thought your voice and tone were very appropriate, and there was a lilt to the memories that gave it more emotion, so that could help us visualize what you were sharing. I love that you use the word of the day. I love when our speakers do that. You do that no matter what role you're in, and I applaud you because you're still a relatively new member, and I have a challenge doing that and then using the word through the day after the meeting. So thanks for that. Last time you gave the speech, you went over time, and you did not this time. So good. You trimmed the content. I find that to be a challenge always. We have to remember less is more, and we can do more with that. So with that being said, I think that you still can slow down. You still could pause and breathe more. I don't remember what Toastmaster told me that, but remember to breathe. I think that that's something that's genetic. It goes back before us in families and generations, but continue to pause and slow down, and definitely watch the recording. I always encourage everyone to watch the recordings of our speaking because you will see and hear it yourself. And my biggest suggestion would be to slow down the introduction, because you really want to nail the introduction and the conclusion. And whether you were muted or not, that wouldn't have mattered. You still would want to give us kind of setting the pace for the rest of the speech. Because once you start right out of the gate fast, it is hard to slow down. But you did. You settled into a groove once you were situated, and you did slow down. But I'd say before you even begin speaking, to breathe. And what else do I have on here today? I think that's enough. Focus on the slowing down and pausing and breathing right out of the gate, and you'll see such an improvement. I can't wait to hear more. I've learned about family memories I didn't even know about, so I'm glad we're telling stories. Thank you so much, Mr. Toastmaster and Mom.
Thank you, Kate. I need to apologize to Thomas. I guess he did make it in time. If it was an 8 to 10 minute speech, I'm sorry. In my notes, I had it down as 10 to 12. So if Larry or Len could put another poll up with all three of our speakers, I'd appreciate it. I sincerely apologize. That's me taking the wrong notes, I guess.
Give me a couple minutes and I'll redo that.
All right. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it. Our second evaluator this morning evaluating Thomas is Sylvia Baptiste. Thank you.
Morning. Thomas, thank you for your speech today, speaking. It's really, it's interesting speech, the whole concept that you were doing with the video and talking about your achievements, your accomplishments in Toastmasters and outside of Toastmasters. And I feel anything that we have learned in Toastmasters automatically goes outside with us. When we are, and some of us who are working still, or even retired, or working with the public community, the confidence that you brought today in your speech shows, and that's a big accomplishment. I know it's mine. I have a tough time with that confidence level. Learning from the Toastmasters, always, just like I said, with accomplishments, I'm going through your list of the objectives. That's where I'm running back and forth at. I also feel the same way. It goes into the outside world in your work, daily things, and not being hard on yourself. That's a tough one, especially if you're a person who is very rigid. And I don't think you are, but people who are, they are very tough on themselves, and it shows. Improvements, you spoke about announcing some setting goals in your goal setting, but I wish you would elaborate a little more on that. What were you talking about in your announcing a career? What do you want to do? You're going to go public, you're going to go what's the tech people there? Help me, folks. What's the cast? Cast. The cast, out there. How you were going to do this? You kind of left me hanging on that. I wanted to know more about that. Your videos at first had me a little distracted, and then, but as it went, I started laughing at them. I think that's what you wanted, to break in there and make us laugh. And your ending left me hanging a little. I would try to find a better ending, but the whole thing, though, it was great. You talked about mentor. I think you would be a great mentor. You have a lot of experience, a lot to bring to the table. Somebody will pick up things, and like Larry said a little bit earlier, you'd be surprised what the mentors pick up from people, and I like that. Let's see what else I have there. Just those little things. The ending really left me a little bit. So improve on that. But you did a great job. And you also could tell that you put 100% in on your speeches a lot of time. And they look good because you have no notes. You're not reading. That's what I have. I'll send you this later.
Thank you, Sylvia. And our final evaluator this morning, evaluating Larry McKenzie's speech, is Phil Russell.
Mr. Larry, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, our guests, what did you excel at? Storytelling. That was a great story. I loved it. Because what you did was you went from the heart. You talked about your grandmother. Now, how much closer can you? I've done this. I had 2 mentors I talked about professionally. You talked about family profession, how your values were delivered to you and how you are today. And that is a great story. So the storytelling was probably your best effort. Now, your gestures. Your gestures are natural. And I want to point this out. We always talk about this standing. You're very natural. You might want to improve by adding a few smiles here and getting a little bit more animated, things like that. But what I liked about it is when you're talking or telling a story and you're seated, it's almost like you're having a fireside chat with some friends. And that's how I felt. I thought it was really good to present it that way. Again, it says, well, how can I improve? Well, that brings up the animation, just bringing it up. Now, how were you challenged? Well, you had to think about this. Who was my mentor? And then you went back to your childhood, and your grandmother was your mentor. You really thought about it. And then you had to think and bring up those stories that made you deliver the speech and make it so interesting. Because we all have mentors. We all have our grandparents. We have our parents. We have friends, all of us. But when you really dig deep, you find out how your life has been developed because of a mentor you had so many years ago. One of the things I did like, you brought up Toastmasters. You brought it up. This is important to a lot of us. And you know why? Because it brings in the audience. We're all Toastmasters. We have something in common. So you brought that up. And I like that. It's really a good thing. So overall, I love the stories. Add a little more animation with your facial gestures and your hands. Get them a little bit involved. It doesn't matter. It just bring a little more life to it. But it was a serious mentor. So that therefore you really accomplish what you want. Now, great speech, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Phil. And before I bring on our general evaluator this morning, I know it's a little bit harder to do with everyone in their own space, but I want to give a toast to the month of October. May your autumnal season be simple and easy as we prepare for the upcoming winter. So toast to October, and I hope everyone stays safe and healthy during this. And with that, I will bring on our general evaluator.
Mr. Toastmaster.
We need the timer this morning, our timer report. I apologize. Jen, how did we do on time?
Time. Okay. Wow. I got distracted because I was just confused on Thomas. And so I totally forgot to time Cate at all. So Cate, I don't know. It sounded pretty good to me. I mean, I'm proud of myself because there was one time when I was timer and I forgot to start the time for six out of 9 people. So 1 today, guys. Like, it's an improvement. So Sylvia went over at 3:23 and Phil did qualify at 2:40. So I'm gonna say like Cate and Phil are probably good.
The cushion. I think the cushion is 3:30.
Yeah, the cushion is 30 seconds for evaluators. So I think they all qualified.
We all qualify. Thank you.
Thanks for keeping me on track, guys.
No problem. And I will invite Ryan,
Mr.
General
Toastmaster, may I have a question?
Evaluator this morning, to evaluate the evaluators, the Toastmaster, and the overall tone of the meeting. Ryan, how are we doing this morning?
Mr. McKenzie.
Mr. General Evaluator, I have a question. Are we doing a revote on the speech and before I put up the evaluator speech? Or the
So
evaluator
I was
poll?
going to get into that a little bit. So the time outlined for speeches is typically 5 to 7 minutes. And one of my notes for today was we can't be so comfortable doing what we know that we forget to be flexible. And so that speech was announced as 10 to 12 minutes. And it was kept to time at 5 to 7. And so what it did, I think it might have thrown off the speaker and it might have thrown off the evaluations after the fact. So that was just one of my big notes, is making sure that we keep to those types of things. Now, as far as that goes, he got in at 8:45 for a 10 to 12 minute speech. So he would still not be included in the polling by our buffer guidelines. So we are okay with the initial poll, provided that the Toastmaster also concurs, because he has veto authority.
No, that works, Ryan. Thank you. Yeah, I originally thought it was 10 to 12 because that's what he put in the agenda online. So we'll go with, I guess he didn't qualify this morning at 8:45. So.
Okay. So as I begin to go through my notes for this meeting, I would like to thank Mike Licata for being Toastmaster today. I'd like to thank our evaluators. I think Cate, Sylvia, and Phil all did a very good job getting to and through their evaluations. Everyone gave really good, both positive and constructive feedback, which I always like to hear. Never at one point do we want to gloss over it and build a happy sandwich without any kind of filler that we can improve upon, but we also don't want to focus so much on the detractors from the speech that we forget to teach people how to improve. So starting off, Cate, definitely good feedback on the second speech, which I think is almost a little bit more difficult to not only give a second speech from Beth's perspective, but to evaluate a speech a second time. And really, even though you take notes, there are certain things that you might not remember exactly how it fell. So you gave kudos for trimming the content, bringing it back within time. The only thing this is an awkward, probably not very frequent occurrence, but when you're giving feedback to a speaker, you want to make sure that you're really engaging with that speaker as well as the rest of us. And you spent a lot of time looking at the camera, which was giving the feedback to us, but Beth was sitting next to you. And so it was just a little bit of a difficult, we got so used to Zoom staring forward into our little tiny circle up here that we forget sometimes to engage with the people when they are with us. We don't have to look for the camera. So just something to think about. Sylvia, really good recap of the notes and good approach. The only thing that I would mention is this comes back to a little bit of Thomas and you together, is don't be distracted by the video, but I think that can be avoided a little bit if we get through our technical issues and then we reset ourselves and we frame the video out a little bit better, because we kind of stumbled from technical into video and it was a little bit more of a clunkier transition than it could have been. So I otherwise, it was a really good job putting together the video, Thomas, and Sylvia. It was a really good job of breaking down not only the beginning, middle, and end, but how he went through it and making sure that he understood that you followed along with each of the different interactions and the different characters that were coming in. And then Phil, really good vocal variety, delivering evaluation and feedback, really good notes for Larry. Again, when we're talking about Toastmasters that have been here for a day or two, we need to make sure that we're still keeping on you to improve, but we really want to start getting into those more nuanced things that we can look at in speeches to make sure that we're really kind of buffering out the edges. We're no longer trying to make a shape. Now we're just trying to buff out the rough spots on the edges. So really good feedback, Phil, for Larry. I definitely appreciate that. So I want to go through the meeting a little bit now that I've done the evaluators. It started pretty good time for a Zoom meeting. We were into the Toastmaster of the day by 7:05 after having done the invocation and pledge and some of the announcements. The word of the day, autumnal, was introduced. Everybody got introduced in their roles, including the general evaluator, which I appreciate, and good job remembering to come back to the Quizmaster. The table topics, I think those were great questions given the theme of the day, and I think that went smoothly. I think everybody enjoyed it. And I think the only other thing that I would note, which is pretty standard across all Zoom meetings, is make sure, just like you would in Tom's Diner or whatever venue that we end up in the near to 4-year future, prepare for your speech, get your notes on the hypothetical podium, frame yourself out to make sure that you're comfortable, relaxed, and in the right breathing mind. If you just ran upstairs or downstairs from grabbing your notes, make sure you take a couple of deep breaths and get set, and then unmute yourself, and then allow yourself to be introduced, and then begin the speech. A lot of times we're having problems with the mute, unmute, and really what it can do is it can fluster you and get you off pace. So make sure that that mute button is being properly utilized in a timely manner. So the roles today, as we worked through, beginning with the invocator, wordmaster, ô:master, grammarian, quote master, jester, timer, Quizmaster, were addressed, as well as table topics. However, the gesture master that was supposed to be introduced at 7:19 was not presently assigned. Now, typically speaking, at least for the speakers themselves, the evaluators will touch on that, but I know we didn't have that role filled. We could have asked for volunteers to fill that role, but as the gesture master, it's not one of the most critical roles, but let's make sure that that does get addressed as we move forward with different agendas. Finally, I'm going to start calling on reports so you don't have to listen to me speak as much anymore. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call on the ô:master, Samir.
It was a pretty good meeting. Mike had one on, one and one unintentional pause. I didn't notice any for Eric or Anne Marie, but they only spoke briefly. Jen had one so, one Mike. Margot and Dave, I didn't notice any, but maybe if anyone else did, they can chime in. Ryan, you were doing really well at the beginning of the general evaluation. There was only 1 or 2 so's and ums, but then at the end, there were 6 ahs and 3 more so's and 2 unintentional pauses. Although that's maybe harder to determine whether or not it's unintentional. Gerald, Tracy, Susanna, all seemed okay. Carol Ann had 1 unintentional pause. Cate had a so. Beth's speech was really good. I didn't notice any lexical fillers. Sylvia had 2 ahs, 3 ums, 1 you know. Thomas had 1 and Phil and Larry were both the consummate DTMs that did not have any pauses that I noticed. So on this autumnal day, everyone did pretty well. Thanks.
Thank you, Samir. I'm going to call upon our grammarian, Anne Marie.
Yes, good morning again, everyone. I really listened very carefully and everybody did an excellent job. I didn't notice any slangs, no drop G's, you know, overall it was really excellent, so very professional. I like the words that we attached to the month of October. I found them very unique. Autumnal, most people used, and it isn't something that we usually hear or are accustomed to hearing. Octo for the month, I think Mike mentioned, and also opal was mentioned by Margot. Ryan and Gerald, this isn't within the domain of grammarian, but you have such a strong, powerful voice. It's like a baritone voice, It's very commanding and professional. And when I hear your voice, I say, how do they do it? They just have our attention without saying much of anything. So I guess that's more in the domain of strong male voice. Let's see what I have. Mike Licata, you did an excellent job again as Toastmasters, engaging. You were very prepared. You had great facts, and you moved the meeting along very well. Beth, I enjoyed your presentation, and when you mentioned a reoccurring dream of falling off a bridge, I had that all the time. And I don't know where it came from, but it's interesting to hear that that's more of a universal icon, so to speak. You used the word discreetly, which I thought was very descriptive. And Thomas, you were so impressive. I mean, I'm sort of a digital novice, so your technique was just incredible. I have creative, innovative, and very expressive. And I just want to share with you, as far as my technical problems, I'm doing Zoom classes, and the other night was the most embarrassing moment of my career, I think. I had 24 people in a class, and I had to put them into break rooms, and I tried my best, and everybody disappeared, and I disappeared. It was terrible. So it was really bad. So I really appreciate your technical skills of putting that movie together. Let's see, Larry, I enjoyed your grandmother immensely. Nan, just beautiful, heartfelt. You used the word devastating. One little picayune thing, you use the word pitcha, which we normally, a lot of people do instead of picture in terms of pronunciation, very picky. And everybody else, I think, did an exquisite job. Very good, excellent.
Thank you very much. So as we run down the reports, I'm going to skip over Gesture Master. That being said, I've noticed a lot of people getting more comfortable with Zoom. And as I was looking at the little tiny squares today, everybody's doing a really good job of being a little bit more attentive to the camera and reacting accordingly. Next, I'm going to call on our quiz master. I'm going to quiz everybody. Len, I hope you are going to be tough on us today.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Yes, I did make a few notes today. The Great Chicago Fire was in what year? Anybody? Remember to unmute yourself if you want to chime in.
1879.
1871, actually.
Close.
It was from October 8th through 10th. It burned, killed 300 people, destroyed 3.3 miles of homes, and it cost, in today's dollars, $4.6 billion in damage. That's a big one. Number two, there was a guest at Carol's party dressed as what?
An outhouse.
Outhouse, yeah.
An outhouse. I think we can all picture that. Although that may not have traveled too well. Some of those costumes get kind of clunky and not really good at moving around at a party. But interesting concept. Beth Banks has memories of what collection? What does she collect?
Hold on.
Salt cellars.
Salt cellars. Now, I didn't know what this was.
Oh.
So I looked it up. Another name for a salt cellar is a salt box or a salt pig. And you would typically have one for each place setting at the table. So everybody would have their own salt. I think we put too much salt on things nowadays, so maybe those have gone by the wayside. Larry's Nan, Grandmother Kelly, used what to keep meals warm?
Hot box.
Hot box.
Hot box.
Hot boxes, which she would distribute to needy people in the community. And she passed away in what year? At the age of 101?
1989.
No, she was
1990.
1990. There's a trick question there.
Yeah.
In what year was the first electric lamp factory opened by Thomas Edison?
Killing us here, Lon.
Nope.
Wow, good question.
1880 on this date. And I don't even know the answer to this, but I'm hoping to pull it out. Thomas used what program to record and edit his video?
Quick Cut.
Quick Cuts?
Cut.
By, who's the maker of that? Is that it?
He told us.
Mr. Cuts.
Mr. Cut.
Oh, sorry.
It was Shot Cut, and I'm looking it up. But yeah.
Okay, should anybody else want to experiment with pre-recorded videos? I'm thinking of a project myself, actually.
A pre-recorded video isn't a speech.
It can be, depending on how you use it. You can incorporate that into a speech.
Actually, Toastmaster International used to allow, even at the international speech contest, a pre-recorded speech for people who could not travel. That was a normal.
Oh, good. Next time I do a speech, I'll just send in a robot.
Okay.
And as we embark upon this autumnal season and the changing leaves, I'm so looking forward to down in Ithaca in a few weeks. I will turn things back over to our general evaluator, Ryan.
Thank you, Len. As we call upon the final report here for Wordmaster, I know David has been chomping at the bit to tell us how well we have done. So I will let him have the floor. David. Mr.
Thank you. I'd like to say to Thomas that I haven't had my coffee yet, so I was a little brusque. Burst might be the next word of the day. We were doing great. We used the word 8 times, and I was going to make this big fuss about 8 being octo, but then more reports came in, and we didn't do bad at all. Samir used it once. Mike Licata used it once. Dr. Anne Marie Leonard used it once. Margot once. Ryan used it. Len. The table topics participants used it. Carol used it in her speech. Beth Banks used it in her speech. And Larry McKenzie threw one in there as well. So be sure to adjust to the autumnal situation that we're going into in the month of October.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, everybody, for using the word of the day, autumnal. And as we wrap up these reports, I'm going to turn the meeting back over to our Toastmaster, and then he will probably call upon the president. But Mr. Toastmaster, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ryan. Before I call on our president, Eric, I just want to ask our guests this morning what they thought of the meeting. So we will start with a frequent guest, David Jones. What did you think of the meeting?
Always find it good and educational. Another thing, I always take things back to our club, and this past week we've struggled to get roles filled, so I challenged the president to do the post toasties like you all do in network, and I'm happy to say that we did that for the first time and we got all of our roles filled. So every time I come on here, it's a learning experience, and I enjoy seeing how you all do things. Thank you.
Thank you. And Susanna, what did you think of our meeting this morning?
Well, this was my second time coming on as a guest, and I think that the first time you were all getting really used to being virtual, and you definitely come very, very far. I think everyone has been learning a lot about Zoom, and I love the way you guys have embraced it. And I really appreciate how you have your abbreviations for your roles in front of your names. We kind of put the whole word and then we lose our name. So why didn't we think of just putting an abbreviation so that you can still see everything? So that was brilliant. And then I just really appreciate you staying on time, even with all the speakers and roles and everything that you are fitting into an hour and a half. So I think it's great. And I thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you. And I saw him still in the chat, but I know he said he had to leave. Julio, if you wanted to say something really quick or not.
He's gone.
Sure.
He's gone? Okay.
Thank you for accepting me. This was a great session. I will be present again soon. Have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now I will turn it over to our president, Eric, to announce the winners and go over the schedule for next weekend.
Thank you so much, Mike. I just want to give a quick welcome back to Marty Johnston. Marty, we missed you very much. We hope you're doing well. So let's welcome back Marty.
Yeah, Marty.
Marty, you want to say a quick hello real quick?
Hello. Hello. I've had a little struggle the last number of months, but I'm getting better. And I had some stomach surgery and it really knocked the you-know-what out of me. And if any of you ever been through it, I congratulate you. But I'm getting better every day with God's help. And it's just, you don't know what you have until you lose your health, you know. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for, I just wanted to sneak in. I missed you guys, and I just always learn something from attending the meeting, and I wanted to make sure, even though I wasn't prepared to speak, I appreciated Larry McKenzie for filling in for me, and I just wanted to be present this morning for the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
On to our winners this morning. Our best table topic speaker today is our guest from Rhetorical Roar, Susanna Toledo. Congratulations, Susanna. Our best evaluator. We haven't had this in a while. It was a tie between Cate and Phil Russell. Congratulations to both Cate and Phil for best evaluator. And our best speaker of the day goes to Beth Banks. Beth, congratulations. Our Toastmaster for next week is Jackie Kenney. Jackie, do you have a theme for next week?
Not at all, but I'll come up with something.
That's a little startled there, Jackie.
I forgot, I did notice it on the schedule, but went right out of my head.
Well, we look forward to what your theme is going to be for next week. Tonight is our social hour, 7 p.m. And Larry, I know you'll put that in the chat. And are there any final announcements before I adjourn the meeting? Yes, Dave, I'll gavel out the meeting. So everybody have a great weekend. Stay warm, stay healthy, be well, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you very much.
I did update the schedule online, so thank you for the prodding, Phil Russell. So the schedule is situated through the holiday party. The end of December is different this year because Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve are both Thursdays. So I left those blank. Those are to be decided. So our holiday party will be December 17th.